We're back now to discuss this week's episode of our Follow the Truth podcast, which digs into the murder of Michael Jordan's father. Now, the backdrop for the story is Robeson County, which plays a big role in how Daniel Green's case played out. Now, the area has had a lot of racial tension and concerns about government and law enforcement corruption. Here's a clip from this week's podcast.
Robeson County is just shy of 1,000 square miles on the southern border of North Carolina. Yet, somehow, it's drawn more negative attention, more conflict, and more headlines than nearly anywhere else in the state in the last 30 years.
Between 1983 and 1987, Robeson County's homicide rate per capita was the highest in the state, double the state average.
With its racial mix and complaints of social injustice, Robeson County seemed the perfect place for Jesse Jackson a week before Super Tuesday.
Uncover what has been covered up for 200 years.
The political, economic, and social conditions here breed powerlessness, breed despair, breed violence.
And we're so happy to be joined now by WRAL's Amanda Lamb, host of Follow the Truth. Listen, let's talk about the racial tension that was so aptly depicted in the excerpt that we just played. In your reporting, how much did this case symbolize the racial tension in that small community?
You know, Ken, it's the backdrop for this case, if you will. I mean, when you look at this case, you can't separate the place from the people and what happened. And I think the most important thing is to realize that there was racial tension. There was allegations of police corruption, allegations of government corruption. And because of that, there was a big mistrust in that community. And Robeson County is almost like another character in this story.
And with all that in mind, how did these factors set the stage for Daniel Green's case?
You know, when you think about it, you've got two minorities, a Lumbee, a young African-American, they're teenagers. They're immediately charged in this high-profile case. And the question is, could they get justice at this time in that county? It was a tri-racial county, and it really still is. You've got about 30% African-American, 30% Native American, 30% white. And the tensions back in the 90s between those groups, it was huge.
Yeah, and to that end, over the years, tension mounted between the disenfranchised and law enforcement. Eventually, the tension snapped with a hostage situation with a list of demands. How did that situation play out in what was a tense atmosphere to begin with?
Right, so this was back in 1998, so it's 5 years before the murder of James Jordan. But the Robesonian newspaper was taken over by a man named Eddie Hatcher and another man named Tim Jacobs. And they held people hostage for 10 hours. And they made demands of the governor of the state of North Carolina to say, hey, look into the corruption here. Look into the corruption in law enforcement. Look into the corruption in government. And basically, that was kind of the beginning of this uprising 5 years prior to the murder.
And after that, just 6 weeks after that takeover, a Lumbee attorney murdered. How did that impact the community?
Again, another big milestone in the history of this county. Julian Pierce was a lawyer. He worked with a lot of young Lumbees who he felt like had been wrongfully convicted. He was running for judge. And so he was a very high-profile person. And basically, people in that county believe he was assassinated. So all of this set the stage for this tension in this county between these different groups, especially between the groups that felt marginalized and the rest of the county, the white members of the community, and also what they believed was government corruption, corruption in law enforcement. And it really all kind of swirled and played into this story.
And this all led to Operation Tarnished Badge, and which confirmed a lot of the suspicions about the sheriff's office. As we all listen to this week's episode, what are you hoping people will take away?
You know, Ken, I hope people will realize that justice, criminal justice, has a lot to do with where a case takes place and who are the people in power. What is the power structure in that county at the time? And so I don't think you can separate this case from what happened at that time culturally. What was the feeling? What were the tensions? What were the mounting tensions there? And I think as you listen to the story, we're on episode 4. We have 10 episodes. One drops every Thursday. You will start to understand that there is a pattern here. There is a pattern of taking two young men who are minorities, putting them in a difficult situation, the perfect storm, if you will, pitting them against each other. And the questions remain about, could they get justice at that time?
This case, this community continues to captivate our imaginations. Follow the Truth, the latest episode dropping today. Of course, you can get that podcast where you download podcasts.